I want to start by thanking my friend and colleague, Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield. Dan and I actually came up with the idea to challenge these tariffs together. We were sitting at a town hall in Oregon about the Trump overreach and began talking to each other about this issue and came to the conclusion, after listening to people in Oregon, and we had listened to folks in Arizona, that these tariffs, Trump's tariffs, were harming the people of our states. And when we were done, we looked at each other and we said, this is illegal and we can fight it. And so we did, and we won. I want to thank A.G. Rayfield for his partnership. I want to thank the lawyers on my team who won this fight and who worked so hard. The Arizona Attorney General's office have some of the best lawyers, the best, I would argue, the best lawyers in the state of Arizona working for us, and today is proof of that. I also want to thank the businesses and the chambers of commerce, including Danny Seiden at the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, for their help and support of our litigation. Their expertise in crafting this litigation was invaluable. Today is a great day for Arizona families and for families across America. The court has spoken clearly. President Trump's tariffs were illegal. The statutes that the president relied on simply do not authorize him to impose these tariffs. And thanks to the lawsuit filed by our coalition of attorneys general, today these tariffs have been struck down. Let's be honest about what these IEEPA tariffs actually were. An illegal tax on American families and businesses. A tax that was imposed without the consent of the American people's elected representatives in Congress. That is not how our system works. It simply is not. The president of the United States cannot unilaterally tax the American people. Not legally, not constitutionally. Our country exists because our forefathers and mothers would not allow themselves to be taxed without representation and without their consent. What Donald Trump tried to do with these emergency tariffs was an absolute affront to the Constitution. And I want to be clear about what this meant in the real world, because I heard it directly from Arizonans. I heard from coffee shop owners who told me that their costs had spiked so dramatically that they were going to have to raise prices or maybe even lay off employees. I heard from furniture store owners who said that the tariffs on imported materials were forcing them to choose between raising prices and laying off workers. They worried about the long-term future of their businesses if something wasn't done. And let me be blunt. For the last year, Donald Trump has illegally taxed the American people's grocery bill. Some Americans even had to resort to using buy now, pay later loans just to put food on their tables. These are real businesses, real jobs, real families who have been harmed. And according to the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation, the average household lost $1,000 last year under these tariffs. All year long. Americans have watched prices climb and wondered if anyone in power was going to do anything at all about this. We did something about it. But this case was always about more than just tariffs or economic policy. It was about the rule of law. It was about whether any president from either party can simply bypass Congress and impose taxes on the American people by fiat. The answer is no. They cannot do that. The rule of law is worth fighting for. American democracy is worth fighting for. And today we won one of those fights. And as long as I am your Attorney General, we are going to continue fighting for the rule of law, for our democracy, and for the American Constitution. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it, and be happy to take any questions that you have.
I wonder, oh, I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
I was just gonna ask about, any kind of refunds that these business owners might be able to expect because of this.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting, obviously, and I think there's a lot of small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses across the state of Arizona that are wondering about this. We're already getting questions from people about this. It's likely to be messy, that's for sure. But the president created this chaos by acting outside of the bounds of the law. And what I would say is, obviously there's gonna need to be a process set up for getting people refunds. I believe they are due refunds. These tariffs have been declared unconstitutional. They've been struck down, and tens of millions of dollars, if not more than that, have been collected under this tariff scheme. It was interestingly enough, it was CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, that probably would process the refunds. Don't know for sure, but they collect the tariffs. So, I think the sense would be that they would be responsible potentially for them processing refunds. We know that there are, a number of businesses that have already sort of indicated that they're going to be asking for refunds. So I guess the folks that I worry about most, and we're just now having these conversations, the AGs are, I'm not worried about big business being able to go after their refunds. I'm worried about the small, businesses in Arizona, mom and pop shops that may not, have the money to hire lawyers to try to recoup, the tariffs that they lost under the scheme. So, think about, those coffee shops or a bicycle shop or you name it, those kinds of smaller businesses.
Just a quick follow-up on that, I'm sorry. You talked about rising grocery prices and obviously coffee shops, furniture stores that had to raise prices. Could there be a possible refund for the everyday consumer as well because of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's really tough. And again, we're in completely uncharted waters here. This has literally never happened in our nation's history. And so the answer is we don't really know. I think one of the things that we would worry about also is making sure that now that these tariffs have been struck down, businesses aren't continuing to have higher prices. And so we don't want businesses to still take advantage of the fact that they've raised prices in accordance with those tariffs. Now, some of those prices probably should be coming down now that the tariffs are not in place. So all great questions. We will definitely keep you up to date as we get answers, but I will tell you the AGs have already been talking about this issue today.
Do you have any legal teeth to force businesses to lower their prices?
I mean, look, I mean, I hesitate to sort of answer that definitively, Stacy, but we do have the Arizona Consumer Fraud Act, you know, down the road, if it looks like businesses are not, you know, being responsive and it's clear that they maintained a tariff level price, I mean, it's obviously something to look at, but right now, I'm just happy for the businesses that they're not having to pay this tax, and that the people of Arizona are not gonna have to pay this tax anymore. Again, you know, $1,000, people are already out at least $1,000, probably more than that as a result of this tariff.
Can you say specifically how you found out about the court's ruling this morning and what your immediate initial thought was?
So I was in a car, I was in California. The Democratic AGs had been meeting together in San Francisco for, I think, quarterly meeting. I had just left the hotel to go to the airport. Was actually having a conversation with members of my team about the Nancy Guthrie case, and we got a text probably from Richie or someone that this had just happened. So what my reaction was, I mean, I'm elated. We are absolutely over the moon about this. I'm relieved for our economy and for every Arizonan who has suffered under these tariffs. I'm relieved that hopefully this will bring down the price of groceries in Arizona. I am so happy that this will literally save small businesses in Arizona. I mean, there are dozens, if not hundreds or more small businesses that were on the cusp of going out of business because of these tariffs. We know that because we have heard from them. Some of you attended a roundtable that I had with some of them, and so this is existential for Arizona consumers who are already suffering with high rents and inordinately high electricity bills and attempts to pass rate increases on them by the utilities. This hopefully will bring some relief to people, so I am relieved on behalf of Arizona.
I remember at the small business roundtable, a lot of the small business owners were echoing just the uncertainty that these tariffs created. What do you think the impact will be on just market stability with this?
Yeah, I mean, that's what businesses were telling us, which is this just threw so much uncertainty into the economy, into their businesses. They could not plan for the future. How do you know, how many bicycles to order from Europe? How do you know how much, clothing to order from, Ireland or wherever you're sourcing from? It was wreaking havoc with the ability of businesses to plan for the future and to even think about growing. So a lot of businesses had put growth on hold, even though we're in a growing state. People, I think, were not hiring. They were even laying people off as a result of this. So I think that's one of the biggest victories inside this victory, which is that at least hopefully it stabilizes things for our economy. Now, that being said, we know Trump has just come out today, as I'm sure one of you is about to ask me about this, and said that he's gonna try to reimpose these tariffs. Not helpful, Donald Trump, and also not going to be popular, but those tariffs that he thinks he's going to or wants to reimpose are, time limited. So I think the one that he says he's going to be using is time limited by 150 days. So that would be if he does this and imposes a tariff under Section 122 of the Trade Act 1974, then that would only be able to be in place for 150 days. And then he would have to go back to Congress and ask Congress if they want to impose this tariff slash tax on the American people. Pretty sure Congress is not going to want to do that. So, you know, I think that's an important point to make. That's an important point that multiple of the conservative justices made in their argument, which was, number one, this power rests with Congress. I mean, fundamentally, that's what this case was all about. That's what so many of my 35 lawsuits against the Trump administration are about, which is that Congress, it was vested by our founding fathers with the power to levy taxes and to raise revenue, not the President of the United States unilaterally. And when you hand over, when Congress cedes power in this realm, or when a president seizes it, then you get this herky-jerky situation that our economy has to deal with, and it is so disruptive.
So what would be your advice for small businesses in Arizona, and how to get back their money? Are you suing again to get their money back?
So, great question. I think it's too soon to say whether there'll be additional litigation and by whom. There may need to be additional litigation. You know, I would hope that the Trump administration would voluntarily establish a process to comply with the United States Supreme Court's ruling in this matter. But what I would say is, to small businesses especially, stay tuned. We'll communicate with you about this, and check in perhaps with CBP, and check in with any other advisors that you may have on this issue. But again, they're the ones I'm most worried about getting their money back, because they may not have fancy lawyers who can go advocate for them. So that's about all I can say on that front. But just know that the AGs are looking at what we can do to help in that sort of aftermath.
I have one more.
Okay.
There's a little bit of wind up, if you don't mind. So
Okay.
remember back in April when you had the town hall with Congressman Stanton out in Mesa?
Yes.
It was actually like a couple of weeks before the tariffs case was filed.
Uh-huh.
But there were a couple of Democrats in the audience who expressed concern that the Supreme Court would follow the law and stand up to the president. At the time, the questions were a lot about like elections issues. And someone in the audience asked you for your thoughts on the Supreme Court, and there was like a hesitant pause, but then you said that you did believe in the Supreme Court, and and that we would see whether the Supreme Court believes in America. What's your thought on the Supreme Court now, and given we have seen some rulings on some of these cases?
I think the Supreme Court still believes in America, based on this decision. I think the United States Supreme Court still believes in the Constitution. And while I may not agree with, you know, a lot of their rulings in other areas, today they remained faithful to the Constitution, and they did their jobs. And it's a really interesting ruling and decision. It's, I think, 120 pages, so maybe something you might want to do this weekend. I mean, I'll be spending part of my weekend reading it. Maybe we can compare notes, Stacy, afterwards.
That sounds so fun.
I know, fabulous, right? Like, you know, let's nerd out over this this decision. But it's but I think that I believed from the beginning that they were going to side with us. I thought that this decision, that this issue was pretty clear cut, and we were, as you know, we also won in the Court of International Trade. And then I think we also won in the district court, then the appellate court, the Court of International Trade leads up to, and then it was taken up by the United States Supreme Court after that, pretty quickly. So, and then when we were in the oral arguments, it became very clear to, I think, everybody who was there that they were skeptical of this usurpation and seizure of power by the President of the United States. And when you have basically a majority of even the conservative justices asking tough questions, then we felt really good about it. So today was a good day for America and for consumers.
I just have one last question.
Sure.
Going off that, you mentioned during those oral arguments in November, you felt like you guys maybe were gonna win this, you know, right then and there. Now we're in mid to late February. Is this about how long you expected it to take to get an official ruling? I know that small businesses have been saying it's been very anxiety ridden to wait this long.
Yeah, I know. I feel for them, and man, we would have loved to have had a decision within a month or two, but actually, I think probably court watchers would say this is pretty quick for the Supreme Court. They could have waited till the end of their term, this summer to issue this decision. So, this was the first, I think it was the first time that they issued decisions after their winter break. So, yeah, it's, sometimes the process doesn't move as fast as you would want it to move, but I'm just really, really glad that we got this decision that we got today.
Any other questions?
Switching topics,
Okay.
you
Yes, sir.
mentioned Nancy Governor.
Yeah,
Would that fall on, I know it's been 20 days, but would that fall under that task force that you created to look into this going down the road? Hypothetically.
The cold case
Yeah.
task force.
Yeah.
So I don't consider this a cold case yet, because I am so hopeful, and praying so hard literally every night, that Nancy is found, and, I know that, both, the Pima County Sheriff's Department is working overtime on this. I have a lot of faith in the investigators on this case. The FBI team, which we work very closely with out of this office on largely drug and sex trafficking cases, is excellent. And what I would say, and we have offered our help, by the way, also to both Sheriff Nanos as well as to the FBI. And if they need us, we will be there for them. And as you know, we do a lot of cases on the cartels. So if that ever becomes relevant, we can offer assistance. But I certainly don't consider it a cold case yet. This is a ongoing, very active investigation, from what we can tell.
It sounds like the AG's office has offered help, but is not yet helping. Is that
We've
right?
offered our help, and it has not, they have not taken us up on it yet. But that offer stands.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, thanks you guys. Thank you for coming out on a Friday. Appreciate it.
Thank you, good job.
Have fun reading that up.